Morning.
I don't even know how many people remember this is the second time you'll be performing in Israel.
Yeah,
What do you
I
remember from
that.
the last concert in Israel?
I remember we went out to a restaurant and Blur were in the same restaurant, and I wanted to say hello to Damon Orban, but I was too shy. And I remember the stage was in the port, and it was on 2 levels, and I fell backwards at one point, and I did my back in, and I was seeing a doctor for about 3 months after the show.
Okay.
So that I remember that a lot better.
So there are specific orders to the production in Israel now how to perform the stage, so to be totally safe, I guess.
Oh, it was just because it was the first time I performed on that stage. We didn't carry our own stage, and it was on 2 levels. So I jumped down from one level to the other, but there was a gap, and I stepped back and there was a hole, and so then my back hit the stage behind me. So it was just one of those things.
How do you explain the fact that so many people now return to this kind of music and rediscover the 80s again?
I think because it was a very inventive era for music. I think the reason was it was the time when we had the invention of the CD, we had the invention of the video, so there was a lot of artistic developments that helped us move forward. And so there was a lot of confidence about art and music. I think people were taking chances and doing very different things with music. We had new instruments that we could use with synthesizers, and all of it was stretching the boundaries. And with that, it was a very, everybody was quite well off at that point. They had money they could spend, so everybody was really up and vibing. And when you look back at it, it was kind of similar to the glam period, where it didn't just, it had good music, but it also looked good. And fashion was very loud and exaggerated. And so I think to begin with, people went back to it because it was just good fun. So if you wanted to throw an 80s party, it's easy to dress up like Paul George or Adam Ant, you know. But it wasn't just the visual. I think then people realised actually the music was great that came from that era too.
Do you miss the 80s?
Not particularly. Actually, I wasn't that fond of a lot of music that was around in the 80s. It's only when I look back now, I think, oh yeah, it was quite good. But I was never a big fan of the synthesizer, so I used it very carefully. Yes, you can hear it's a synthesizer on wherever I lay my hat, but on a lot of the other tracks that I used, or as soon as I could, on the second album, I got back to real guitars, real drums. And we mixed in a little bit of synthesized drums, and we mixed in a little bit of synthesizer. But I still prefer the sound of natural instruments, really. But
I remember at the time when you first hit the charts with the No Parley and all the singles that came after the album, most of the people talked a lot about the contradiction between your singing, which was very soulful, very warm, and the fact that it was a lot of electronic influences. It was one of the first times that these 2 elements so successfully matched together. Do you think now that this was one of the main reasons why this album became so successful?
Yeah, I think so, because drum machines and synthesizers were developed in the 80s. I think people, first of all, approached it from quite a robotic sense when you think of Kraftwerk and things like that. And it was only later when people like Howard Jones started to come along and really understood how to do drum programming. And then as they developed, they started to sound more real. But I think when No Parley came out, I'd come straight out of a soul band, and I couldn't have sung any other way. That was the way I was singing at that point. And I wanted to make a modern sounding album, and I'd met a producer who was working with those instruments and understood them. So the idea was to create that fusion.
All along your career, many of your hits were cover songs, actually, to different artists. Was it intended on your behalf? I mean,
yeah. I always wrote songs. I didn't think that I could write a good single, So I would always look around for other material. And also all the artists I like Ry Cooder, Frank Sinatra, there's a wide range of stuff that I listen to, and most of them write some material, choose other material. I think what I wanted to do was create an album that was, from track 1 to track 10, had interesting choices. The thing is, if you write all your own material, sometimes an album can sound a bit one-dimensional. So I always wanted, and I received a lot of criticism for that at the time, because ever since the Beatles, we're all supposed to write our own material, and to a certain extent, I disagree. I think some of the best music, some of the best films, it's all because of collaboration, it's not because of just one person.
Do you still make covers to do?
Yes, I do. I write a lot more though. I think I've got a lot more that I can write about. I'm older, I've had a lot more experiences. I find it easier to write songs now. I did a season in Nashville and got some covers out of that. Some songs were done by other artists. So that makes me feel a bit better. And also, when I was younger, I didn't have the patience to sit in a room for 5 hours and write a song. Yeah.
You were never afraid to take a song as much as you loved it and respected the original version, you turned it into your own.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, that's the idea of doing a song. When in the Motown era, people would write songs like I Heard It Through the Grapevine. There's 5 or 6 different versions of that. And then then some people say, oh, the Gladys Knight version is the best one. Some people say Marvin Gaye is the best one. I think if you take a song, that's what it should be. I don't see the point in copying the original. Once or twice I was leaned on heavily by the record company, like Oh Girl, and I didn't change it much from the original, so I'm not that proud of that one. All I did was do the great version that the Charlites did and sing over the top of it. I'm more proud of songs like Love Will Tear Us Apart, where I'll take a song from a certain era or new wave or whatever you want to call them, and then put it into a different place.
So what should we expect during the concerts in Israel?
Well, I have been, the concerts I've been doing recently, I do mostly songs from the first 2 albums, 3 albums, and then a few from the later albums, but I think that at this time of my life, people are going to come along and want to hear the hits, and so that's what we do.
Here and in Gaza, did you have any doubts about coming here?
No, not really. I looked at it geographically, and I thought it was okay. I was told it was okay. We've seen more bombs in London than you have here, most likely, in my life, you know, when we had problems with Ireland and things like that. So I've seen it, and I took everybody's advice and I thought it was okay.
Your daughter isn't here for a few months. What do you do here? She probably give you some advices.
Actually, she told me very little because I don't think she wants me to know what she did.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Have great concerts.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.